Once you start collecting ancient coins, one of the most surprising things about the hobby is that there are an awful lot of coins out there. I mean, technology was not as advanced, human population was much lower, and the commerce simply wasn't nearly as fast-paced as it is today. But, alas, there are a lot of coins out there. They must have had a very efficient way of making so many of them. This is what we're going to discuss today. How were ancient coins made? How certain regions and time periods had their peculiarities when minting their money? And look at some nice examples. Let's go! So we live in a world surrounded by very well standardized, high quality goods. The same can be applied to modern coins. Having hundreds of millions of coins look exactly the same as the very first prototype is a very impressive accomplishment if you think about it. And you only need to look at an ancient coin for like 5 seconds to notice this kind of manufacture consistency wasn't something available back then. But they definitely tried to achieve it in what we could best describe as a very well standardized manufacture. Today, we explore how the Greeks and Romans minted their coins, how the medieval peoples of Europe did it, as well as how the ancient Chinese did it. The Greeks and the Romans placed quite a lot of importance on coinage technology, as they were a very urbanized society for their time that needed a lot of coins for their complex society to work in the first place. So they diverted quite a lot of time and resources on their minting technology and on their mint facilities. So it all started with metal ingots being melted down and cast into a string of circular blanks. These blanks were then cut loose from the string with pliers. This is where the first signs of imperfections and manual labor can be seen. Coins were generally made in a hurry. So as we can see in this example from Emperor Gallienus, the cut must have been made with excessive force or in a rush, resulting in an imperfection at the flan, almost like if a bite was taken out of it. Certain time periods show better or worse quality control. This particular piece was made on some very troubled times, and many examples show defects. On some other occasions, like in this coin from Emperor Elagabalus, the cut wasn't made at the right spot, resulting on a small tip of excess material on the flan, where it must have been connected to the rest of the string of blanks. And in this curious little case, this coin's flan was originally somewhere among the middle of the string of blanks, so we can see the connecting tips on opposite ends of the coin. Someone at the mint that day must have been quite a bit lazy, frankly, and decided not to clip the excesses of material as to make them perfectly round. On some other situations, we see something that looks like a difference in diameter between one side and the other of the coin. This is most likely the result of how the holes for the molten metal were sculpted, probably on some sort of stone surface. This served to prevent the blank from sticking to the side of the walls, so it could slide out of the slot easier once the blank was cold. Next, the blank was heated up to a cherry red hue. At such temperatures, the material would be much more malleable, making it easy to impress a design on it. It was then placed between two dies with the design of the obverse and the reverse, and it would be struck with a hammer blow. The tremendous forces exerted on the metal would not only imprint the design on the flan, but also create what we call flow lines. As we can see in this other coin, the outer edges show a series of lines flowing outwards, indicating the displacement of metal during the hammer blow. This is particularly easy to spot on gold coins due to how soft the metal is, and in my opinion, it gives it this magnificent effect that looks like the coin has little sun rays radiating from the center. And a particularly strong strike can even create what is called a flan crack. The pressures on the edges of the flan is just too strong for the material and it tears the metal. This particular example is quite small. Some can be quite dramatic and go like nearly to the center of the flan. The Romans were particularly talented with metallurgy, and around the 3rd century AD, the empire started having problems with state expenditure and unreliable sources of silver for minting coins. This resulted on the gradual decreasing of the silver content per coin, called debasement. This coin of Emperor Philip the Arab has less than 50% silver content in it, yet it looks like a piece made out of very high-grade silver. It should have had a much more coppery tone to it. The Romans had a trick called depletion silvering they applied to the blanks before striking. You see, silver and copper don't mix very well, and a microscopic image of the mixture would show you like a matrix of copper and silver blobs. If you then heat up the flan, drop it on some recipient with acids such as vinegar or urine, the copper close to the surface gets leached out, leaving a spongy surface of nearly pure silver. If you then hammer this spongy layer during the normal minting process, you compact the pure silver on a high quality silvery surface layer, and you are left with a coin that is made out of inferior alloy but looks like pure silver. This technique was used with reasonable success from the earlier 2nd century until the middle of the 3rd century. When the debasement got so out of hand, they just couldn't pull this trick off anymore, as there wasn't enough silver on the coin to even make this thin layer. Once it got to this point, dripping the coin on molten silver, making a silver wash, was an alternative that quickly showed its core, like on these later coins. Next, we jump forward to the medieval period. After the fall of Rome, the imperial territories devolved into smaller independent kingdoms scattered throughout Europe. Each one of these kingdoms adopted their own monetary systems, and they simply could not afford the highly complex minting apparatus the Romans and the Greeks once had. As a result, coinage technology had to be adapted, and mints became localized, less refined, and somewhat cruder if you compare them to the refined craftsmanship of their predecessors. One of the most striking differences is how thin medieval coins are compared to Roman coins. This happened because medieval kingdoms could not afford the casting of a round, thick coin flan like the Romans did. Instead, they would prepare ingots with the right alloy of the coin, then heat them up and hammer them into a very flat sheet of metal. This sheet would then be manually cut or punched, and these would be the coin blanks, simple cutouts from a thin metal sheet. These thin flans would then have an obverse and a reverse design hammered on them, and as we can see here, the designs were far from the complex imagery of coins from antiquity. It is not all doom and gloom, however, as later medieval coins started receiving more complex and refined designs as the medieval kingdoms became more economically prosperous. The thin blanks would also receive some kind of surface depletion to improve the appearance of the alloy and make it look at least silvery, but the process was less refined, and you are generally left with a mix of colors between silver and the darker coppery hues. This was made worse with the natural handle and wear of the coin. Such thin coins would also make it easy for unscrupulous individuals to shave part of the metal from the edge of the coin, extracting a bit of precious metal in the process. This was called clipping. This Italian coin has some very subtle clipping on one of its edges, and if you were caught and accused of clipping, you would be subject to all sorts of unpleasant punishments, from having your hand chopped off to a simple and straightforward death sentence. And finally, we head to the Far East. The Chinese had a monetary system entirely made out of base metal alloy coins. As each individual coin had very little intrinsic value, there was a need for an obscene number of coins. The individual hammering of each coin with handmade design simply wasn't a practical solution for such huge numbers. That's why the Chinese decided to make the manufacturing process a little bit more streamlined. The casting of the blanks would already include the designs on the mold, so you wouldn't need to hammer the coin afterwards. This restricted how complex the designs were, and as a result, ancient Chinese coins aren't as artistic as other coins, but they are an interesting show on how designing a coin for mass production and ease of manufacture can influence its final appearance. The individual coins would be broken away from their tree-like original assembly, and they were almost ready for use. The fact the coin possesses a hole in the middle is also a direct result of the fact Chinese coins were entirely based on bronze alloys. A significant transaction would require a very substantial amount of coins, so stringing them together on strings of cash was a more convenient way of handling bigger sums. Also, since the casting process wasn't always perfect, the resulting coins would generally have some excess material spill outside of the round constraints of the mold, so after separation from the original tree, the coins were put on some sort of spike with a profile similar to the square hole to hold them in place, and the imperfections would be removed from all coins. So how about your collection? Have any of your coins possess any of these quirks I've mentioned on the video? Have you got any clipped coins? Any coins with some intense flow lines, or some silvered coins with the core metal showing? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video, so we can keep talking here on YouTube about ancient coins for a long time to come. See y'all soon!